Mr. Olu, our Olympic resident at the studio.
Stop it.
Give us a little bit about your backstory.
Whew. That's so open-ended. I got like 1,000 different lives I lived before I ever entered the studio, but I will say that it all started as this kid in Dale City, Virginia. I was the first of my family, my immediate family, the only person in my immediate family born in the U.S. Ooh. So everybody else was born in Nigeria. And I grew up with working Nigerian parents, which means my parents are always there in my life. I'm really grateful to say that. Even after my parents split, both my parents still equally in my life. That's a privilege, which also ties into this story, because I was instilled with like such a hard work ethic. You know how it is.
Right.
We got foreign immigrant parents, so working is just what I do. I'm used to like going for what I want. I say all that to say, even though I was proud to be Nigerian growing up, I never had the opportunity to go to Nigeria. So the opportunity came, fast forward up until 2013. I was training professionally. At that time, I graduated from Indiana University, decided I knew I wanted to keep training professionally, but I was training with Ayanna Alexander and Samir Lane. Shout out to those are my family. Samir was like, if you really want to compete, you might be able to compete for Nigeria. And that had been floated around by my college coach in like my freshman year of college, but now I was actually competing professionally, so I took some heart to it. I wanted to compete for the U.S., but long story short, I got information through Samir for Tosin, who competes for Nigeria as a triple jumper, and he kind of opened the door for me to contact the federation, go over there. And my first time going to the country, I ended up winning the national championship.
Wow.
And beating Tosin.
Wow. Wow.
Now, he, it ended up becoming a really cool relationship, but I say all that to say, I've been given a lot of really cool opportunities in my life, but because I was always willing to do 110% when those opportunities arose, each of those opportunities have really flourished and blossomed into something beautiful. So here we are.
So how did that translate to you being behind the camera?
Ooh. I first had a camera in my hand when I was 5. I had like chicken pox or something. My parents bought me this little Fisher Price camera from Toys R Us. And that was cool, kind of like gave me the bug, but I didn't explore that until years later when I was in high school. I took a photo class and a video class. And then after high school, I didn't know that was a possibility, a thing that I could do. But then fast forward even longer, through my early 20s, I ended up competing in the Olympics when I was 25. And right after I came back, I had like, you go to the top of the literal mountain. I was in Rio on top of a mountain and having these beautiful moments. And I was like, all right, I got to tell everybody about this. So I came back home and I started shooting these crappy little YouTube videos on my iPad. And if you do some digging, you can find these videos, but don't do no digging. But
do your research.
Like they're up on YouTube somewhere on one of these channels. And I just started recording content talking about like all the things that helped me achieve what I wanted to do. There was no real direction. But that was fall of 2016, and slowly but surely, it's like, okay, I can't be shooting on an iPad. So I started shooting on my iPhone, and then I also got a phone from the Olympics, which at the time had a really high quality. So started shooting videos on that. So, and I was personal training at the time. So I used those videos to really start creating content with whatever I had available. And I mean, lo and behold, step by step, I just got more interested in photography and videography. I started learning about camera settings and all of the things that I saw that inspired me. I started learning about those on the back end. Nobody knew I was doing these things. I would just talk about it, with people who are close to me. But by the time, I would borrow people's cameras and whatnot, by the time I was able to get my own camera, shout out to that stimulus check, 2020. By the time I was able to get that stimulus check and buy the camera, I already knew what to do. I was hitting the ground running because I'd been looking up years and years of research before I ever touched the camera. So when I got the camera in my hands, I bought a new lens, and it kind of just took it to the moon from there. On that note, you and I started working together, which is crazy, almost 2 full years ago. Time flies. We're old. We're the senior citizens. I'm just going to put that out there. That being said, I had been looking for a place because I just bought a camera in December in 2020, and I was looking for a place to start shooting to really get my experience up. And I was praying, like, God, make a way in the way you've done in other aspects of my life for me to take this to the next level. And then you DM'd me. I kid you not, like maybe like within the week of that. and you were like, hey, you want to shoot? I'm like, I already seen your work. I saw you open the studio. Your husband's an Olympic high jumper, so I already knew of you, although I didn't know you. And then we came in and we did that shoot where you blew my
fire.
We created some heat off day one. We got to put those clips in here because those shots were crazy. And I was just like, how did you do this? And, I wanted to know, like, how do you know when the person you're talking to, if every encounter you have with any new person is like an audition. So how do you know in that audition, so to speak, if the person you're talking to is the right person to collaborate with?
I think, one, we forget that every encounter is an audition, right? Like, I think one thing growing up that we were always taught is like first impression is everything. And I think a lot of us, because of social media, we have forgotten that. Yeah. And we're not really looking to build relationships anymore. We're looking to build fans. We're looking to build followers. But I think even when working with you, the biggest thing was you were a student of your craft and not just photography, right? Yeah. So of course, I'm very biased for athletes and track and field athletes specifically because I'm married to a high jumper. But knowing the dedication that goes into that craft, knowing the dedication that goes into doing something where you're an individual in your career, and knowing how much discipline that takes, and knowing that even with you specifically, knowing that was going to be translated, even because during our photo shoot, you were asking so many technical questions. And I'm like, who the hell is this kid? Like, asking about the lighting, asking about the grids, asking all these different things. And it was funny because the prayer that you said, I had a similar prayer to God as well, where I was asking him to put people in our life, in my life specifically, that I can add to the community of the studio. And after we worked together, I literally was just like, I feel like he's going to be an amazing fit because of the conversation that we had, because of how you carried yourself. You were on time. It's like everything, we always forget that, again, everything is not just an audition, but it leaves an impression on the next person. Yeah. So even the way that you communicate with someone, the way that you carry yourself, you just never know who's going to be able to open a door for you. And I'm grateful for you because you've opened up so many doors. You've taught me so much, even in this experience. And I think that's just been the beauty of even just the whole community of the studio, is watching everybody grow, blossom. We're like a family. We fight, we argue, but at the end of the day, we all learn from it and we all grow from it because we know that everything that we're doing is not just about us.
Man, it's beautiful. About make me tearful.
Hilarious. So for you, last question. When I met you, you were transitioning from wanting to retire, although I'm still trying to get you out of retirement. Paris is coming up, y'all. If y'all want to comment on this and tell him to compete at Paris. But you were at a point where you were transitioning from being a professional track and field athlete to finding what that next move was. Yeah. And I know that even with the people that I work with, or even the people that we both know, that transition is very, very difficult. So what fearless advice would you give to someone who is making a transition that they don't know what it may look like?
The number one thing I would say, I mean, you asked me, and it depends on the day, is what my answer would be. But I think today I would say, like, if you have a passion, and sounds so cliche because people say this all the time, but if you have a passion, go for it. But going for it doesn't mean you're quitting your job and selling your house, figuratively speaking, to go for a passion. Like, get into it however you can, and tune other people out. That might mean, you look at me like this year I've been making a point to be active on social media, but in general, I'm very secretive of what ideas I have going on, because I really think it's important to protect your passions and not expose that to the world so soon, because one bad word can make you feel like you shouldn't be pursuing something you're passionate about. So I would definitely say, screw the doubters, tune out the noise, mute everybody else, find a passion, and dive into it even when it doesn't look perfect. I mean, I started with an iPad and I shoot with an R5 now. So God can do things in the universe and all these things can open up, but you got to first go for that passion with however it looks, as imperfect as it is, and then really incubate that. Don't expose that to the world, but rather see your community, like you and everybody else, with people you trust.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Bar.
Oh, wrong one. But it worked.